Now that the motherboard has been assembled onto the base plate with the CPU and memory, the TV adapter, if supplied, can be attached. The whole assembly will then be replaced back into the case. Power connectors attached to the motherboard along with a power switch and speaker if supplied, then the computer attached to a monitor and finally powered up. Remove or slacken off one of the expansion slot screws, then insert the TV adapter and replace the screw. Check on the motherboard for the TV out connector. Once again, refer to the schematic diagram to locate this. If we check the signal cable from the TV adapter, we shall find a plug and what seems to be a hole that has been filled. And if we inspect the connector on the motherboard, we shall find some missing pins. Once again, this is for alignment purposes. If you find that plugging in this adapter is difficult, check that the alignment is correct and that it has been plugged into the TV out socket. Remove all the cables within the case to make room for the base plate. Align the motherboard base plate with the two runners found in the case as shown. Then slide the whole way in. Check that the base plate sits in the runners as shown on both sides. Next, replace the rear fixing screws. The motherboard power connector is a 20 or 24 pin connector depending upon the motherboard. In our example, it is 24 pin. Notice it has a clip at one side and you will find that the connector will only fit in one way. Here we are looking down on the motherboard power socket. On this socket there is a lip and on the connector there is a clip. These should be aligned and pushed into position as shown. Here we are looking from the side of the motherboard and we can see how the motherboard plug sits in the socket. This is the 12 volt CPU power connector. Once again it has a clip. This plugs into the 4-pin socket on the motherboard. Notice how the cable has been routed. The rear fan is next. Find a spare Molex power plug and plug this in. The front panel fan will also need a Molex plug. It does not matter at this stage which of them you use. This is the front panel connector. It contains all the switches and LEDs found on the front of the case. Two of these pins have been marked as PWR, BTN or power button. Notice that there is a number 1 at the left hand side of these pins, which means that the lowest pin number is on the left and the highest number is on the right. We also have from the front panel a wire and a connector called Power SW or power switch. In our example it is a blue and white wire, but this varies. However, in almost all cases it will consist of a coloured and a black or white wire. Plug in this connector with the coloured wire, in our case blue, to the lowest number or to the left. The reason for this can be found if you subscribe to the course BTEC Award in Computer Engineering found at www.candoit.co.uk. If the motherboard has been supplied with an internal speaker, this also needs connecting. Once again, this is plugged into the connection called the front panel. If we look here, we can see a label SPKR or speaker. If we refer to the schematic diagram again, we should find it also marked. Notice how the coloured wire, or red wire in our example, is plugged in facing the left hand side. Before we power up, check that the mains power switch is in the off position. Check that the CPU fan can spin without any restrictions. Check that the rear fan can also move without any restrictions. And finally the front fan. Plug in a 15-pin monitor signal cable as shown. Then a mains lead. Notice we have not connected the keyboard, mouse or hard drive etc. This is because the computer at this stage should initialize. connecting the other devices will have no effect on this. This is where it can vary quite a bit when the mains power switch is thrown. In some cases, the PC will power up straight away. In our example, only a power LED will light on the motherboard, indicating it is in the standby mode. If the computer does not power up, press the front power button. Check that the fan on the heatsink rotates, the rear fan and the front fan. If any of these fail, turn off immediately and check the connections before continuing. Some motherboards will, if fitted with a speaker, cause one or more bleeps. This is called the post bleeps. Finally, we should have some messages that appear on the monitor. What these messages mean are explained at www.candoit.co.uk should you decide to enrol on the BTEC Award in Computer Engineering. If you do not get any power or no messages appear, then it is possible you have some connection wrong or a fault has developed. You should remedy the problem before proceeding, since connecting the other devices will not cure the problem.